I was going to save this to the end, but I want to get this off my chest because
Get it
it's
off your chest.
bugging me.
Yeah.
Indy. I'm going to talk spoiler free here
Good,
for the most part.
Please.
People are being way too harsh on Indy 5, Dial of Destiny.
I don't understand and I haven't seen it, but I don't understand the weird response it's getting.
Having seen it, I understand even less why people are giving it a hard time. And it's not just Cannes. It's not just the Cannes Film Festival. It's critics in general. Even critics I usually agree with are like, yeah, I don't know. I'm like, dude, what's the problem? Even Kevin Smith, I watched his part of his review of this last night, and I was getting a little ticked off at him because he's like, well, it wasn't fan servicey enough for Kevin.
Really?
It even says it's not a bad movie. It's actually a good story directed. It's like, so
what his problem was that what?
I don't want to spoil it.
Okay.
I can, and I don't want to spoil it for you either. He just was expecting more, basically just meaningless fan service, essentially is what it boils down to. There's like something in the trailer that's not in the film. He's like, well, what happened to that? Like, I didn't even realize that when I was watching it. It was like, Kevin, come on. I mean, and I just don't. And the other complaint I hear people saying, oh, it's too long, or the action sequences go on too long. I'm like, not once. And the whole film was I sitting there going, man, when is this scene going to end? When are they going to get to the good stuff? It was all good. And also the other thing too, if you don't go see this movie because of these critics, you're going to miss out on one of the best performances, the greatest performances that Harrison Ford has ever done. It's
nice.
This is one of my main complaints with Crystal Skull, the last one, is that some of the scenes are great, but there was a lot of scenes where I just felt like Harrison was just kind of sleepwalking through the film. And I think that's partially because Spielberg wasn't really into that movie either.
Yeah,
and it's just not all the way there. Not in this one, man. He is so in it, and it's just a fantastic send-off for his character. So for the love of God, go see this movie, especially people who are watching this channel. Most of you, as I know, are our age or older. This movie is for us. This is a movie about aging and embracing your legacy and finding peace in yourself. And it's fucking awesome.
That's why I'm wearing my dad's hat.
Yeah. Right. So please go see this movie. And just the other thing is too, that I watched Red Letter Media's review of this, and I love those guys because they're hilarious, but they're also notoriously some of the most cynical and unforgiving critics on YouTube. Sometimes for good reason. Sometimes they're a little too cynical, I think. But they did for example, they loved season 3 of Picard, which I was kind of surprised by. They gave it high marks. This one they were okay on. They said, well, it's okay. But their main complaints were it was the too long thing, they said. Whatever. No. The other thing was, too, that they were just disappointed that it didn't feel Spielberg-y enough. Like some of the scenes, guys, it's not a Spielberg. I know everybody's expecting Spielberg, but it's not a Spielberg movie. This is a James Mangold picture. And that's the thing is I realize people are expecting a certain brand of and then it does have it. I mean, Mangold leans heavily into the Spielberg stuff, but to expect it to not be as Spielberg as he didn't direct it.
Yeah, Spielberg was interpreting, just like Lucas was, the thrilling serialized pulp kind of stuff that they grew up with. And Mangold is probably interpreting the same thing, but through his own filter. So you're not expecting him to really emulate Spielberg as much as emulate what that means to him, that kind of action adventure story. But man, I can't prejudge. All I know is I want it to be good. You're loving it. Makes me feel better because there's a problem where you're always worried as a huge fan, and I am a huge fan. And Crystal Skull, disappointing, but was I happy to see it? Yes. And will I rewatch it again? Absolutely, because the characters are there, and I love that world. So, I like that. I like a hero in Twilight story. I do like it's like one last ride kind of thing. I'm always there for that stuff. So it's right up my alley, and I was nervous about it. And the people I know you were. And the people that I was expecting to hear from have all said it's great.
Good.
So I'm going to go in. I really don't spend much time on. I read headlines of a lot of reviews. Because generally speaking, I kind of want to get just like the gloss over, like they're like, this was a waste of time. Okay, that's what you think. But really, until I've seen a picture, I don't want to read a lot of reviews about it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, are you doing the thing where you're going back now that you have seen it
Yeah.
to dive into those reviews and go, screw you, man, you just don't get it?
Yeah, but I'm not even watching the ones where there's some thumbnails on YouTube where they're going, "Ugh." I'm like, well,
Oh,
screw
nice.
you. I
Nice.
don't recommend channel. I click that thing. I'm done with you,
Snap.
man. But the reviewers I do like Chris Stockman and Kevin Smith, I'm just kind of like, guys, the thing, this is the thing
It's
too,
interesting with Kevin Smith, though, because that guy gushes.
yeah,
I don't understand. I mean, he's not a hard audience, really. I mean, Jesus, he was losing his mind over his best pal Ben Affleck and that terrible Batman.
yeah. But if once you see the movie, you go watch his review, you'll probably be as irritated as I was. Like, dude, come on.
Come on.
Because the thing with the Spielberg and the different tone that Red Letter Media guys were complaining about, it's just funny to me because James Mangold also did Logan, which was a sequel to the X-Men franchise.
Yep. And it was very different.
Totally different in tone from those movies. Nobody seemed to have a problem with that. And I can see, I think a lot of people probably were like Kevin, disappointed that it wasn't more fan servicey because it doesn't.
I've seen really weird, like reaction stuff. There's really ugly stuff too online that is unnecessary, including people who are, actual journalists or reviewers. Do you see that pushback from, I don't remember what rag, and by rag I mean online news source, but someone going like, man, Karen Allen is virtually unrecognizable. And I'm like, she's a woman in her 70s who's still Karen Allen. And what, I'm sorry that she's let you down by aging. What the hell are you getting on about?
Exactly.
And then also there were people online who are being real snide about Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who is not she's beautiful, but she is a unique looking lady, and I love her. I love her look, but I mean, that's pure surface. But of course, she's brilliant, and everything that she's written and starred in, she's amazing. So the whole idea that people are like going, "Oh, this is what we get now," as if that, like, look at this chick. This is, and I'm like, "Oh, that's gross."
Yeah,
that is so gross.
It is.
It's like, is there a character that she inhabits in this movie that she was meant for? Then shut up. It's like, shut up about that. Weirdly, no one's like going, geez, Harrison Ford, stay home, grandpa. But it's like them attacking either the young woman in it or the older woman in it. And you're like, stop. Just stop right now.
I didn't see this, but one of the other reviewers I watched, Sean Chandler, who I do really, really enjoy his channel, he's kind of mid on the movie too. He's more.
I've seen a lot of people go, it's okay.
Yeah. And he was like, but he was also kind of going after other critics who were criticizing the movie for stupid reasons. Like, Harrison Ford's out of shape. Dude, he's 80. Give him a freaking break.
Give him a freaking break.
He looks great, I thought. So, whatever.
They all need to shut up. And I'll go see it as soon as I can. I really, really want to see it. And the box office is weird too. Do you think that's review, or do you think people are just
another depressing thing? This is
one
of the reasons.
They're just tired of Indy.
Yeah, it's doesn't. I don't even know if it's just Indy that's a problem. It's just films in general. Flash bombed. Of course, there's a lot of explanations for that you could pull up. This one, it's depressing that it's not doing as well.
And you're telling people to go see it based on your great enjoyment of it. Again, that should make people who are on the fence, but love the source material. You might also come out middling. You might not even like it, but you're saying, dude, if you're a fan of the stuff, it is worth making up your own mind. Go see the damn movie.
Yeah,
because it's not a cash grab. I think this was meant, in other words, with all the right reasons. They made it for the right reasons because they wanted the story to be told.
Yeah.
So that is. Because you can sometimes tell. You can tell a cynical cash grab, and you're like going, oh boy, they're going to milk a little bit more out of that franchise. But I'm down.
And don't get me wrong, like I'm talking about James, it's a James Mangold picture, not a Spielberg picture. This is very much an Indiana Jones movie. He does not, he does it. It's just,
dude, he's riding a horse in Midtown Manhattan.
Yeah. But he does not lean into the fan service as much as I think people like Kevin Smith would like. But it doesn't mean he doesn't lean into it at all. there's plenty of fan service in this movie.
Wait, so the Ark of the Covenant has not been turned into a coffee table?
No, no, there aren't a whole lot of. Okay, I'm not going to give too much of that away. Yeah,
I appreciate it. I appreciate you.
It's great.
Thank you for guarding my sensitivity.
Yeah,
I'm glad you got that off your chest, and your passionate, response that says a lot. So I can't wait to see it. I did, like, it was the coin toss of Spider-Verse or Indy for, this round of money. And I said, no, Spider-Verse, just because it's been in theaters longer. And I am very much looking forward to Indy. Okay. So what should we talk about now?
Well, we got still loads of comments.
Loads of comments. We do every week.
This is one I wanted to get to last time, but we didn't have time. Steve Powell, he says, this and Far Out Space Nuts, as well as Ark II.
Ark II!
Back when Saturday mornings were great. And I went, Ark II. And I had to look it up. But I was like, of course. As soon as you see that vehicle, like,
can I do another Brendan's real life adventures story?
Yes, please.
It is not an adventure, but the route off of is it the I-5 that would take me into Burbank to go to my job tour guiding at Warner Brothers. Right across Barham is the street you take off the exit off the freeway, but across Barham you could see this used car lot, and they had the Ark II. They had the Ark II vehicle was in their lot, so I assumed that either someone had acquired it, and it wasn't like for sale. They just had it there, and it was in a little shaky shape after all these years. But it was just so weird to be like going, do. Oh, there's the Ark II. Well, all right, now I'm going to work. But so I got to see it. I watched that. It was. I wish the stories had been better. It was like really weak sauce. Lost in space,
right?
Because they don't travel anywhere. They're literally, the Ark II these are survivors of a post-apocalyptic Earth, and their vehicle, which is this enormous, like minivan times 3, like stretched out almost like a train, and inside of it's like a happy family and a couple of stray other people and a chimpanzee, and they're just going around, destroyed Earth, and they run into people, and it's not a great show, but it was a Saturday morning classic.
And so this led to a couple of other realizations, because when I found it, I commented, I replied to Steve, I said, yes, that's another one I totally forgot about, but it's coming back to me. And I remember being obsessed with the Ark II itself, and attempting to draw it. I think I drew that vehicle so many times as a kid. But then Steve says, yeah, the producers took the front of the Ark II and they turned it into the front of a spaceship and a couple of other shows. Space Academy and Jason the
Star Command.
Yeah.
Yeah, which are the same verse.
Yeah.
Which one came first?
I watched a little bit of Jason the Star Command. I was like, oh, yeah, I remember this too. I think Space Academy might have been first. So I mentioned Time Tunnel to you this past week. This is why I got on that. And I'm not saying
your obsession with time travel. Your obsession with time travel is well established.
Yes,
we did the entire thing on Time Machine and Time After Time,
which is that is the most popular podcast episode we have right now on YouTube.
Wow, weird.
Yeah,
but I mean, it was great.
Burner,
we did a combo thing.
Well.
A slow burner.
On the last episode of the podcast, we were talking about. We mentioned Voyagers, Time Bandits, and Quantum Leap as being strangely, seemingly influenced by each other. Quantum Leap and Voyagers both were about correcting historical events or getting history back on track. So Jonathan Sheeran, who we answered one of his comments last episode too.
Hi, Jonathan.
He says your comparison of Voyager, Time Bandits, and Quantum Leap is genius. Loved all these, but never made a connection between them. And you're right. So this prompted me. I thanked him. Obviously, it was a very nice thing to say. Mm-hmm. But I went on to try to find out, were they actually influenced? Was Quantum Leap influenced by Voyagers and so forth? So I looked at Quantum Leap, the Wikipedia page, and I don't know where they got the source from. Maybe the producer mentioned it in an interview at one point, but they said it was influenced by Time Tunnel. And I go, oh, what is that? I didn't remember it. And I guess I don't know, maybe just where I grew up, it just wasn't in syndication. because I guess it only had one season.
That's another one of those Irwin Allen productions.
Irwin Allen,
And obviously, Irwin Allen's films, his disaster films, he became known, Towering Inferno, all those things.
Yeah.
But for TV, he was the genre guy for a long time. And I think Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea was probably his first big hit. And I only saw some of that. And again, just like all the ones he made, his most famous TV was probably Lost in Space, which I mentioned earlier. And that's the one, because it lasted longer, that's the one that we as kids we saw in syndication all the time. We, just for the folks at home, we were not alive yet when these shows, came on. So we're a little younger than them, but they were running all the time, just like Gilligan's Island and that kind of thing. In fact, I think where I grew up, I think that Lost in Space and Dark Shadows, which still love, were probably, I think they were an afternoon block. And I think a morning block was like Gilligan's Island and something. I like all the classic stuff, all the classics, Bewitched, I Dream of Jeannie. But the Irwin Allen stuff is always like, they're taking it pretty deadly serious, but it's for kids. So it's written pretty simply. And it's a lot of models and sort of puppetry, and occasionally guys in weird alien suits.
Pretty high budget for a 1960s
for
sci-fi
its time.
show. Yeah.
The one thing with Time Tunnel, I mean, it was a kind of crazy concept, had a good theme song. All the Irwin Allen shows
Great
actually
theme
had really,
song. Holy shit.
all of them had, I mean, because you had, was it John Williams who did both of the Lost in Space themes? Like one of his early jobs.
Did he?
I think it was John Williams. But anyway, yeah, I loved those. Time Tunnel had, like you said, a good budget, but it was kind of dumb time travel, which
it was very schlocky. Yeah.
Because they never bothered to explain, like, oh, we're back in ancient Rome. How are you able to understand these people?
Right.
It's like, do you speak every language from every era?
Yeah.
But it would be just something stupid where it's like, here we are in ancient Rome. We have to make sure that Caesar gets stabbed.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just so fun. I mean, I watched a few episodes of it.
It is
and
fun.
They have great There was a lot of really great character actors as guest stars on the show.
Yeah.
The first episode I watched, I forget the net title of the episode, but it has Carol O'Connor.
Nice.
From All in the Family, playing actually playing two characters, playing because they go back in time to the War of 1812.
I think I remember that one.
Yeah, there's a British colonel there who's played by Carol O'Connor, and then in the present day, there's a British general also played by Carol O'Connor, who's the ancestor of the other guy.
Nice.
And his performance in this, as both of those characters, is like Oscar worthy. It's
Carol O'Connor.
He's so good. Was
an amazing actor. Yeah. I mean, just legit. Obviously, what we know him for is another amazing character. But it's one of those things where he's known for something so intrinsically that then you have to go out and you see him do other things and you're like, holy crap. And there's some people that are so identified, it's worth finding other things. Like Henry Winkler fell off the map for a long time because Fonzie was huge for Happy Days. And, he would just get work here or there. But thank God for Arrested Development. Thank God for them going like, let's bring him back. And now he's had this late career, renaissance where you're like, oh my God, he's so good at other stuff. Yeah. He always was. His turn on Barry, all 4 seasons of Barry is unbelievably great. But it's also true of like, who was I thinking of? Oh, Ned Beatty. Ned Beatty, who, of course, since we're such huge fans of Superman from 78, he did a lot of goofy comedy parts. It's true. But then you watch him in Network, and the man is electrifying. He is scary. He has one scene in Network, and he destroys. And then you see him in Deliverance. That's a one watch, and then say, I did it. But again, these are all really talented actors. But yeah, Carol O'Connor. Time Tunnel, the whole thing with it was kind of, all of Irwin Allen's stuff was high concept. Like it had something really hooky. And then he's like, and then just do your best. Here's an episode on the Titanic. Why not? But the whole thing at the time, he's being smart. He's like, just cast a hot like teen heartthrob. Like you get was it James Darren is in Time
Yeah.
Tunnel.
Oh, he's so great in it. Yeah.
Yeah, it also had Lee Merriweather in it,
Yeah.
who lovely lady, and she only played Catwoman once. That was in the Batman movie they made,
Yeah.
and she's very good. I
Mhm.
have a signed photo of her as Catwoman that came out of somebody's used book buy when I worked at Powell's. Like they just
Oh,
like sold us a bunch of their used books, and then in the book was a signed, like tucked in was a signed 8x10 of Lee Merriweather as Catwoman. I was like, cool. We can't
nice.
sell this, then
Yeah.
I'm taking it home. So now it's my. I shouldn't admit that. Is there a statute of limitations?
Also, Whit Bissell plays
Mm,
the military guy who's the head of the
yeah,
project.
Whit
Whit
Bissell.
Bissell from The Time Machine.
Yep.
George Pell's The Time Machine.
Yeah,
Uh,
and then the circle was complete.
yes, right, exactly. So he's great in it. Robert Duvall plays a villain in one of the episodes.
Oh wow, young
So
Robert Duvall.
yeah, and so there's just great, so much great stuff in it. One of the other episode I watched, which was very schlocky but so much fun, was called "The Ghost of Nero," where
Oh
it's a ghost story where they go back in time to I think the time of World War One, when
yeah,
Germans, and they're in Italy, and Germans are invading Italy, and they wind up in this little villa somewhere where there's a count played by an older actor who I'm sure is a name whom I can't remember right now, and he's great
sure.
in it too. And but yeah, the ghost of Nero is haunting this villa, and
Oh, isn't that the worst?
they actually have fist fights with this ghost. He possesses a Nazi at one point, or
Wow.
German. So I guess they're not Nazis yet. They're, because it's World War One. But there's a one scene where both James Darren and the other actors, whose name I'm forgetting now, I
Robert
believe,
Colbert. I
yeah,
pulled it up.
I think they're both still with us too. Actually, both of those guys.
I hope so.
But they get into a fist fight with the German guy who's possessed by Nero, and they're both punching him in the face at the same time. It's so great. And then later,
Take that, Nero.
Robert Colbert gets into a fist fight with a ghost when the ghost is immaterial, and he's like trying to find him, and then and you see something falling into the couch. It's invisible. It's so much fun.
Wow.
It's just so silly. This is the thing I observed that kind of blew my mind, and I don't know if this is really where this stuff came from, but Time Bandits and Voyagers. One of the reasons why those two things seem related, or why Voyager seems influenced by Time Bandits, is that in Time Bandits we have them. They jump through the time doors and they fall,
Yeah.
and they reach their new destination. They fall from the sky.
Yes.
Same thing in Voyagers.
That's right. They would drop.
They click the Omni, which is the little pocket watch that Phineas Bogg has, and they blink out of existence. Very similar to Time Tunnel. When they go to a new time, they just blink.
I forgot that his name was Phineas Bogg.
Yeah.
Which of course is like Phileas Fogg from Around the World in 80 Days. So they're doing like a wink.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's a Jules Verne wink.
So one of the first things I noticed when I pulled up Time Tunnel and watched one of the episodes is that when they arrive in a new time, they blink out of existence, just like on Voyagers. But when they arrive in a new time, they fall into frame, like not from above, but from the side. Because they're like thrown out of the tunnel or something.
Yeah,
and it is a very cheap way to do,
yeah, they're not doing they're not even doing like the Star Trek, teleportation effect or anything. They're literally just jumping into frame.
It makes me wonder if that's where Terry Gilliam got that idea from, that then
could be
Voyagers took
what
as well.
I think that, obviously everything influences everything else. So Time Bandits did well in the theaters. It was an unlikely hit, but it did well. And I'm sure that there were people coming up with Voyagers are like going, ooh, maybe it's time for another time travel series.
Yeah.
And we'll have it be wacky misadventures where they're trying to reset events, and it'll be our version of Time Bandit. So it's a chain where they go, ooh, I could take something from there. But I mean, that's true of everything. Speaking of which, something I not that I'd forgotten about it, but I just read before we started. I was just surfing around, and someone was, I think on Twitter, was saying, this is what I'm watching right now. And they just put up a photo of the box set of the complete series of Tales of the Golden Monkey from the 80s. And now that is clearly a ripoff of Raiders, because Raiders had hit. This ties us back to Indy. But do you remember that? Like, anytime something's
it
popular,
is a ring a bell, yeah. Tell me about it.
Anytime something's popular, then it becomes like, we got to do our own version. So in the theaters, you have Raiders, and they're like, ooh, pulp adventure is now the new trend. So at least 2 TV shows tried to cash in on it. Tales of the Golden Monkey was the closest to actually nailing the Raiders aesthetic. It's set in the 30s, and the Golden Monkey, there apparently is a golden monkey statue, this mythical thing, and it's protected by these weird anthropomorphic apes that you only see in one episode, really. But it's all like Nazis are there, they're trying to get the gold, and then Jake's like, yeah, you can't get it, da, da, da. And it actually was funny. It was pretty well shot. It was good. Then there was also Bring 'Em Back Alive. Remember Bring 'Em Back Alive? These things lasted like a
Not off
season,
the-
maybe 2.
Once you just start describing it, it's probably going to come back to me just like Golden Monkey did.
Bruce Boxleitner. This was after Tron. This is like one of the first big things he got after Tron. And in this case, he's playing real life guy Frank Buck. But it's a very stylized version of Frank Buck's life. Frank Buck in the 1930s was a big game hunter. And he became like a famous big game hunter because like, this guy goes into the wilds of Africa and comes back with a rhino head. And you're like, wow. But he also became famous for Bring 'Em Back Alive because he was capturing game for zoos. So he wrote a book about his own life, autobiography called Bring 'Em Back Alive. And so you got Bruce Boxleitner in a pith helmet. It's 1930s. Oh, and his female star was the woman from Tron. Cindy Morgan. So they were reunited in that show.
Oh, okay.
Who was also in Caddyshack. So yeah, that was not as good or as entertaining, but they were both desperately trying to cash in on Raiders. Put someone in the 1930s and have them fight Nazis. Great.
This is reminding me of something else that I think Bruce said. Let me look this up really quick. Just 1 second.
Do you mind if I take a little nap?
Yeah. What's his name? Michael, who played from a. You sound like a Furby.
Thank you.
Sleeping. Yeah.
That's why the ladies can't stay away.
Michael, who from Spinal Tap. Michael, Better Call Saul.
Michael McKean.
McKean, yes. Michael McKean. Dirk Benedict. Okay, I was thinking of Dirk Benedict.
Oh, Dirk Benedict. You mean Face Man?
Yeah, or
you mean Starbuck?
Starbuck, yeah. There was a sequel to the Zork series. Zork was one of the first
the text adventure game.
Really successful text adventure in the early 80s.
I remember playing it at friends' houses.
There was a graphical adventure sequel called Zork Grand Inquisitor that came out in 1997. And
wow.
Dirk Benedict plays a character in that's very Indiana Jones.
So you thought it was Michael McKean, then it turns out to be Dirk Benedict.
No. Michael McKean is in it too.
Oh,
Michael
he is?
McKean, yeah. Michael McKean plays, he's like the voice of the lamp. He's like basically the narrator of the story. He's great in it. He's fantastic.
So it's a video game, but they've got video, like shot on video segments in it?
It's like with a lot of cutscenes and stuff, live action cutscenes. It's very much kind of like a Myst kind of adventure game.
Yeah. I've never heard of this.
It's great fun. I would love to replay that game. I wouldn't know how now. It was a Windows
emulator.
It did come out on Mac.
I'm sure there's an emulator.
But Dirk Benedict plays, I forget what the name of his character is. He's like an adventurer guy. He's very much Indiana Jones. At one point, he helps you refurbish this lamp that you find that turns out to be possessed by the spirit of a wizard that's played by Michael McKean, who talks to you. But as Dirk Benedict is trying to restore it, he goes, "Oh, let me see. You got a lot of carbon scoring here. Let me," which is a direct quote from Star Wars. Anyway, okay, so we got a comment from your brother.
Oh, I'm very sorry.
Your fiend, Mr. Jones.
Yeah.
Robin says, Dusty's Trail was co-created by Sherwood Schwartz, so the Gilligan resemblance was intentional.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Sherwood Schwartz, I mean, that makes sense that he's like, let's reproduce the formula. And you, last week, were the one, I guess you had done the research to find out that Dusty's Trail was completely made for syndication. It wasn't even...
Robin said that.
Oh, Robin said that.
Yeah, that was the next part of his comment.
I will also say that Robin, I hate accepting anything he says as being true. But I will give him that. He does know his stuff. My brother does have a very deep catalog of specifically character actors. He, of course, loves the big stars, but the thing Robin loves more than anything is going to see a movie, and while you're trying to watch it, lean over, go, that guy played a killer on Columbo. You're like, great, thanks, Robin. I'm just trying to enjoy it. You see the guy in the back holding the soda can? That guy was on a really great episode of Cannon. Shut up! I don't care. But that's my brother. That's the Robin Jones experience right there.
Yeah. He does say. So I believe, but on this I might be wrong, that it was made for syndication. It still only lasted a year or so, but Schwartz was obviously trying to recreate his earlier success.
Yeah.
And he says, for Turner Classic Movies, I'm Robert Osborne. Okay, so our friend Kate Scott.
Hey, Kate.
Who was your first sponsor?
Yeah.
Also a huge. She's a big supporter of Blackguards, and we just saw her this past weekend in Brenham.
Oh, cool.
Kate says, along the kids these days are smarter line, which is something we said in the last episode.
Yeah.
So the advancement of special effects has us spoiled. Totally agree. Star Wars: A New Hope was amazing when we saw it in the theater, but wow, watching it now, and Star Trek, our palettes have definitely changed, and it's true. I think that in a way, I kind of blame that in part to people being jaded in films right now. And yeah, I think in storytelling too, it's kind of, this kind of goes back to Jaws too. Like there's a classic thing in a filmmaking where they were severely limited in what they were able to do special effects wise, so they had to lean on suspense more. Because Spielberg famously wanted to show more of the shark, but the model looked like shit, so they couldn't do it.
Right.
So they leaned more on suspense and the fin moving through the water, and that made the film.
That made the film. But I don't necessarily think that filmmakers now feel the need to go all out, but they can. And so, in other words, they feel like, well, if I have the toys, I want to use them. At the same time, I've seen some amazing low budget stuff. And sometimes I do wish, what's funny is if you watch something low budget that really works, but you had to forgive its bad effects, and then you're like, okay, the effects weren't great, but I still think it was really well done. And so sometimes you wish they had the tools or the money. We just watched on the podcast to do with John. We just watched Bubba Hotep, which I've always loved since it came out. Bubba Hotep's great.
Yeah.
And Bubba Hotep is really low budget. Even though you've got Bruce Campbell and Ossie Davis, it's shot in Texas, and it's shot by the guy who did Phantasm, the Phantasm series, which was low budget itself. And every now and then there's something really shaky or shoddy, like the scarab in it is literally like this rubber thing that's being pulled on a string. You're like, oof. The movie's great despite that. And all I wished was, I wish I could have, crowdsourcing back then. Like, I wish we could have put some money into Bubba Hotep to make it that much better. But then I do see things where it's just an excuse when you have all the CG in the world and you're like, let's throw it all at the audience. And you're like going, maybe less is more sometimes.
Yeah.
It's specific to the project, but those toys and tools have made it a little, like she's saying, have made us jaded. I can still watch A New Hope and it still looks good. I mean, I have the bootleg of the original theatrical release, so I can watch it the way I saw it back in 77, and I'm still impressed. Yes, you go to the cantina, and it's clearly like, oh, these are the leftover, rubber monster masks that they found and that's literally what they were. And you're like, yeah, that's pretty cheesy. But those models and the effects work is great.
There's still a lot of it holds up really well.
And, and some of the little changes that he made, some of the little ones, not the big ones, some of the little ones are good. Like being able to see into the cockpits when the X-Wing squadron's going by and you've got actual pilots in there now. I'm like, that looks great.
Yeah. And that's a really good example actually of where effects, the advancement of digital effects kind of went a little bit too far. And Lucas is unfortunately sort of
he loves his toys, man. Yeah.
The poster child for taking things too far in his special editions of Star Wars. There are some great things that he added. There was one thing he added that I think was perfect, was where the enhanced shot of the Millennium Falcon leaving the space dock and Mos Eisley flying away.
Yes.
That was fantastic.
Yes.
But there are a lot of other things he added that
we didn't need the Jabba scene.
No, we did not. And then he added a bunch of stuff to Mos Eisley to make it more busy and things walking across the screen. That wasn't necessary either.
It wasn't
Yeah.
necessary, but it also didn't detract, I felt.
But it was also funny that there were things that I feel like I thought for sure that he would redo that he never did. Like there's the scene of where Porkins. Oh no, is it? I think it's both Porkins and Red Leader when they crash land into the surface of the Death Star.
Yeah,
it looks very very fake and miniature.
yeah,
and
because
tiny model explosion. Like why didn't they redo that?
Yeah, that literally looks like they set off a firework on the surface of the Death Star.
Yeah. So yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, we're old guys. But I do agree with you, Kate. We've all become way too inured and cynical because we've seen they can do anything. So why waste time on something that's a little lower budget and more suspenseful? Yeah. We also just watched. I'm sorry, I keep making references, but it's around the time because we're now in the 2000s of the movies we're watching. So we also watched Dog Soldiers. Robin was a special guest on that one. He requested that, and Dog Soldiers, a really great werewolf movie from the early 2000s, low budget, like Australian made, I believe, and it's great because the acting, character, writing, all of it's so good. And when the werewolves show up, you don't get really clear shots of them except for here and there. So the makeup is in the shadows, and that's perfect for it. It works. So you never sit there going like, geez, that's a terrible looking werewolf. Instead, you're like going, this is gripping. So it was like Jaws, but not in the water. It was about the filmmaker saying shadows help. If you don't have the budget, shadows help. And suspense and a clawed hand coming in instead of like saying, hello, werewolf guy, here I am. Doop, 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 doop.
So I'm trying. I got a lot more comments, but we don't have time for all of them as
just
usual.
Give me a couple.
So Zaround, one of our loyal viewers.
Hello, Zaround.
This is a fun fact about 2 Captain Marvels. In this most recent Shazam movie, which I know neither of us have seen.
Yeah.
He did get called Captain Marvel in one very brief scene that alluded to that issue. Says I don't remember the dialogue perfectly, but somehow they did put that into the scene.
I actually did have that spoiled, and I think they even released it on YouTube. I saw it. It's another thing where he's like, I got to come up with a name for myself, and this was a scene where apparently the same Argus members that we saw in Peacemaker, and I think they're like going, well, we're going to keep an eye on you, because that's what our job. We track all you metahumans and whatever. And it's like, we just don't know what to call you. He's like, and it's like, I don't know, something like, I don't like, I'm Mr. Awesome, or like Captain somebody cool, maybe I'm Captain Marvel. And goes, I don't know about that. So it's like it's like a cute little throwaway, but at least they do mention it.
Yeah.
I will probably watch it. I mean, it is streaming on it, and I liked the first one. I understand this one's not as good. I don't hold it against them, but this is part of the thing where people going, it doesn't even count. Doesn't even matter, man, because James Gunn's coming around. It's a new DCU, so those movies, when Aquaman 2 comes out, who's going to go see it? It doesn't even count. Yeah. Well, it counts because it's a movie that got made.
It's a fun movie to watch, yeah.
And I can't wait for Blue Beetle. I'm really looking forward to Blue Beetle.
So Zarand also says this is a fun little nerdy deep dive he gave us here.
I love it.
There's another fun fact about 2 superheroes having the same name. Toshibura Productions in Japan made a TV show about a giant superhero who was part robot and part biological, with a biological brain and internal organs, but robotic parts as well, called Ultraman.
Yeah.
Filmed at around the same time as the original Star Trek, late 60s. But there is another Ultraman, the crime syndicate in a parallel universe with evil versions of all the good heroes as a villain who is the antithesis of Superman.
Yes.
The writers wanted a prefix to mean very powerful and chose Ultra to rival Super. His costume looks like Superman's for the most part, but he has a big U on his chest instead of big S. So Ultraman and Captain Marvel both repeated superhero names. And I said, I do the comments, I'm pretty sure Brandon's heard about the DC Ultraman.
Oh my God. No, I know about the Japanese one too.
Okay, cool.
And I believe they might be fairly concurrent. And I know for a fact that Ultraman Japanese did not in any way influence Ultraman from DC Comics. Ultraman is one of Japan's biggest legacy heroes. Like, he's been around forever, and in fact, I think they're still occasionally making new reboots and things with Ultraman. We got Ultraman as like syndicated, dubbed. stuff here in the US, and even a knockoff from there, Spectre Man, which that used to show up in Houston when we were kids, syndicated. Spectre Man, which always cracked me up because the name of the show in English, Spectre Man, but on the logo when the show starts, it said Captain Spectre, and in the show they were saying Spectre Man. But it's basically the same idea. It's like they knocked off Ultraman, and we got the knockoff too. That's great. But as far as DC Comics goes, that's Earth 3. I love Earth 3. Earth 3 is the reverse Earth. So their greatest hero is Lex Luthor. And the crime syndicate are evil versions, but they're not one for one. That's interesting because their backstories aren't the same. Ultraman is not Kryptonian, I don't believe. And I believe it's Power Woman is their version of Wonder Woman, but she's not Amazonian. And Owlman, I wish that were not the case, but Owlman is their Batman. He is a human, with no powers, and he's their smartest guy. Johnny Quick is their Flash character. Power Ring is their Green Lantern knockoff. So I love the guys from Earth 3. And yeah, he's got this big U on his chest. He's got the blue body stocking, big red U, red cape, and he looks a lot like Superman. And they have fought many a time. I think that's awesome. Thank you for, I had never really thought about it, but also that could just be, there's a small well and you're like going, superhero names. Yeah, whatever. And I'm sure there's plenty of crossovers where people are going like, well, we're going to call ours the blah, 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 but there's already a blah, blah. Ours is different. Yeah.
So that segues pretty well into the Superman casting, which we want to talk about. Thank you everybody for your comments.
Yes.
We're going to do this every episode. We're going to be answering comments.
And I'll try to stay more on topic because I veer. My brain goes to a place and I veer.
We're here for the veers. That's why we're all here.
I'm just here for the veers. Look.
Yeah. So who? Remind me of the names of the people we know. There's only two names have been announced, right? That's it.
That's it. And actually, only one of them I know. As in, I've watched her work, and that is Rachel Brosnahan, who is the marvelous Ms. Maisel.
Mrs. Maisel.
And she is so good. Such a good choice. She's beautiful, but the thing about Marvelous Mrs. Maisel is that she's a female stand-up comic in the 60s, and that required this actress to have real sharp, fast patter. And I don't think that James Gunn's going to go full 1940s front page kind of stuff, but having Lois Lane be a fast-talking, quick-witted person, that's a perfect choice. Mm-hmm. So I'm all for it. That's perfect casting. Now, Superman, our new Superman, David Corenswet.
Yes.
I don't know how you really pronounce that.
People have been saying corn sweat.
Oh, David Corenswet. Yeah. And actually, because I keep going like, I don't really know him. And John's like, you've seen We Own the City, which is a fairly recent TV show. And I did watch it and I loved it. He goes, he's in it. And I was like, oh, he's not the main character. And I kept John Bernthal, who was Netflix's The Punisher, was the main actor in it. And also Joshua Charles, who's great, is in it. There are a lot of great people in it. So he's part of that cast, which means I have seen him in something, but he didn't stand out to me. And John's like, yeah, he's got this scruffy beard. He's one of the crooked cops. And I'm like, oh, okay. But you see pictures of this guy and you're like, there you go.
Yeah.
He's going to build up the muscle mass. But even so, I don't think this is Brendan's personal message to Mr. Cornsweat. You don't need to go as big as Cavill. I mean, Cavill looked amazing. Absolutely. But there was a problem every time you saw him as Clark Kent. You know, Christopher Reeve was incredibly fit and muscular. He just didn't go to this extreme that we now expect of like a Hemsworth, where it's like you've got to just be ripped and you need to see veins and whatever. And it's like That's up to
Yeah.
you guys. Obviously, that's a discussion between you and James Gunn. But you're a handsome guy. He's a handsome guy, and he's going to look great. He's going to look great.
Yeah.
Hopefully, red shorts, man. Fight for the red shorts. I
Yeah.
believe in them. But he does. I saw a video of him just on. It was pre the announcement. It was just someone saying, like, I think they made a good choice. And it was a video of him just talking about representation in film and stuff from some press conference. And he just comes across as like, yeah, okay, he's a humanistic, good guy. And I think that's why James Gunn said when he goes, found the right people. He goes, it's not just that they're great actors. These are really good people. And I think he realizes is like, look, if you're casting anyone as Superman, they don't need to be a saint, but we don't need to find out allegations later of like, inappropriate, whatever. I bet if you get cast for one of these superhero movies now, they are doing extensive background checks. They're reading all your old tweets. They are like seeing if you made some really embarrassing YouTube video when you were in high school. They're making sure you never did anything in blackface or whatever. And they're like going, oh, thank God, he's actually just a good guy. So I am jazzed that at least on the surface, we're in good hands. Everything I hear about choices being made, story-wise, so forth, I'm happy, man.
Yeah. So far, so good.
So far, so good.
What we've heard, this bodes very well, I think.
And I do think we can pull back on needing. I know that James Gunn keeps people involved, as in he wants to keep interest going even while we're in pre-production. So he drops lots of hints and says, this is what we're doing, and da-da-da. I get that. But I think there's also a time where it's like, just go make the movie, okay? And then surprise us then. I don't necessarily need endless updates, which it hasn't really been the case. I think he knows he's over the big hurdle. We now can picture what our Superman and Lois will look like. I hear things that he may be casting Authority characters from the Authority already. They may actually be in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Luther apparently is in it, maybe, but he keeps going on saying, "Oh, I'm sorry. Did someone tell you that Luther's in this movie?" He just teases a lot too. He's like going,
Yeah.
I never said Luther's in this movie.
Because there were heavy rumors that, I forget his name now. It's the guy who plays Beast in the X-Men First Class
it's
films.
Nicholas Hoult, who's a really good actor, and apparently he had been up for Batman too. And the story, you heard the story. He went in to read for Luther, and he goes, "Actually, I'd like to read for Superman." And he didn't get it. Then there are people online going, dude, to think that someone got close to Batman and Superman and lost, he's a loser. I'm like, he's not a loser. He's a great actor. He was just in The Menu, and he was amazing in The Menu. This guy is solid. He's never going to hurt for work. He would have made a good Luther. I mean, maybe he will get it. I don't know.
Yeah, I hope that James Gunn does put him in something, because he's
and clearly
very, very
we're
good.
going for the young era. Some people online were going, isn't she older than him? How can we have an older Lois? She's 32.
Margot Kidder was older than Christopher Reeve, so
yeah, I'm like,
shut up.
Yeah, I'm like, shut up, please.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Could you please shut up? Thank you. Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm excited by this news, and again, I trust him to have made the right choices for this movie. I am jazzed. Can't wait. And I think it's 2 days from now, the new Superman cartoon debuts.
I did not know about this. So what is this? It looks
great. It's going to be on Adult Swim, but it's called My Adventures with Superman. And it is skewed, I think, at teens, but the animation looks great. And it's very true to the comic. It's Clark as a young guy trying to settle in at the Daily Planet. And the drawings, they have made them look like young adults. Lois looks like she's maybe 18, 19. And she's got short hair. And she's the scrappy, like, I'm going to prove myself, tomboyish kind of person. And Lois and Clark's glumping after her. Then Superman is saving her. Jimmy is black. I'm fine, whatever. But he's definitely portrayed like Jimmy from the comics, as opposed to the way Supergirl was like, call me James. And you're like, okay, all right.
Just a big, boring dude.
Just a big, boring, hunky dude. And this Jimmy, though black, he's the nerd. He's got like suspenders. He's running around with the camera.
Good.
And it looks like it's like the three of them is almost like a buddy thing. And it's not pure comedy. The animation looks really nice. And it has a good feel to it, as in the reviews are coming in already on it. Like Rotten Tomatoes, and it's getting like 100%. People are just loving it. But yeah, it debuts in a couple of days, and I'm looking forward to it. Always a super fan. Always a super fan of
Indeed.
Superman.
So, all right. I guess that wraps it up for this week.
Yeah, we talked about a lot of things.
We did, as we often do. Yeah, so I'm pretty sure we have a Patreon account at this point. At the moment we're talking right now as we're recording this, I haven't opened it yet, but I probably will by the time this episode comes out. I am going to start it off with a couple of exclusive clips that I cut out of episodes because I didn't think they were going to track very well.
None of the ones of me farting, right?
No.
Oh, but thank God.
There will be probably early releases of videos. And also definitely a sneak peek at the Brazil video that I've been working on in the background for like a month now. Yeah,
I know. I'm like, did we talk about Brazil? That was like 4 years ago.
Brazil, the legendary movie by Terry Gilliam.
A huge favorite of both of ours. Yeah. We did talk about it for a good long while. I love that movie. I could come back and talk more about it because it's just so great.
Yeah, it really is.
But we're also, as Chad is shaping the Patreon, tell us what you might like as viewers, but also, of course, patrons. We're still trying to figure out what it is you might enjoy as incentives. I brought up the idea of maybe you guys pitch us something you'd like us to cover, which, of course, will still end up with me going way off and veering. But still, maybe there's a movie or TV show from the past or present that you're like, I wonder what these old farts take on it is. We'd love to tell you. So let us know. And I think that's a good idea. We appreciate the views. We appreciate that we've grown so much in just a short time.
Very short period of time.
Yeah. And that means you must somewhat appreciate looking at the stuff behind us. That's all it is. That's all it is. Is people like going, what has he got back there?
Get out of the way.
Yeah. It's like, yes. And I did explain what that box is, and I don't want to explain it anymore. But anyway, so let us know. And I'm going to do my plug now, Chad, if that's okay.
Yeah, hit it.
Hey, you may not know, but it does say it in our notes. Chad's been very cool about always posting it. I do a live show here in Portland, which is resurrecting 1940s radio scripts from the ultra obscure Tesla Broadcasting Company. And we do that live on stage, but we've been building a podcast version so people everywhere can hear it. And because we're an independent theater thing, and boy, those are always gushing over with money. We are so wealthy. What I'm getting at is we have started an Indiegogo for our show. Me and my producing partner, Jerry Chrisman, also a friend of Mr. Chad's. We've started an Indiegogo. You can find us at indiegogo.com/projects/ oh, this goes long. The Tesla city stories help us boost the signal #. Did you like the way I did that? It was kind of cool. It's kind of like
getting into it, yeah.
Dash. Or you could just go to Indiegogo and search for Tesla City Stories. Yes, like the car, but more importantly, like the great inventor Nikola Tesla. That's what they named it after. Go there for information about what the show is. Watch a little clip of me begging for money. And if you're feeling up to it, help us out, because these shows, though they're from the 40s, talk about ultra nostalgia. They play really well today because we've had sellout crowds. We are going into almost our 10th year. So any help is appreciated. Over to you, Chad.
Yeah, that link will be in the description of the video. It'll be in the show notes of the podcast. Yes.
Why did I do all the dashes? You were already just going to put it in.
I'll put a drum beat underneath it.
Behind. Oh, nice. Yeah. Yeah. And then never do that again. All right.
All right, y'all. We will see you next time. Hopefully next week.
P-Saps out.
P-Saps out.